Okay, I put up a video yesterday. I don't exactly recall what the title was. I believe it was 11 Reasons Why I Reject Christianity. No, it's called it's called 11 Reasons Why I Reject Christianity. It was 10 and then I remembered one more. Anyway, I had somebody respond named MDChristian82, who, it's interesting, he writes a very lengthy, unoriginal response. But at the bottom, I have the option to either like it or dislike it. I don't have the option to reply. And I don't know how he sets that up, how the new Google/YouTube has it. But I think it's a huge disservice. He has the advantage over me because I can't reply to him. And I think that's not fair and rather low and cowardly. So instead, I'm going to make a video response to his really unoriginal comments here. He says at the end of his that I have given no argument in my video, which is hysterical because nothing he writes in his response is an argument either. His first comment was to my thing about the fact that there's no evidence for the Garden of Eden. He writes, there are theories as to where Eden was. He's mistaking the word theories for hypothesis. Hypothesis is a tentative explanation. A theory doesn't get to be a theory unless it goes through and manages to endure grueling criticism and scrutiny by the scientific community, which is why creationism is not a theory, whereas evolution is. And there is no theory that has anything to do with Eden because no scientist, and I highly doubt any Christian who is a scientist either, gives the whole Eden thing any credence. Yes, it is I don't even know if it's a theory. It is thought, is well believed, and widely accepted or agreed upon that humans sprang from Africa, that originally we came from Africa. That isn't the Garden of Eden, but I can certainly see where Christian fanatics or just whatever, people who want to insist on a fairy tale being true, would take something that they read in a science journal about where humans came from and call it and say, oh, that's where the Garden of Eden is. So he writes me, his first comment is, there are theories as to where Eden was. No, there are not. There's no theories. Theories in the Bible contradict each other. Why do you need to know? Well, gee, why do I need to know? Because I want to know what the truth is, not what a primitive book says. That's why. I would like to know as much that is true because I'm curious. I have a curiosity about ancient people and paleontology and archaeology and history. I would like to know how things got started and what happened before what, and of course we can't know everything because we don't have a time machine, but I would like to know as close to what is true as possible. And a book isn't going to give me the answer. One book isn't going to answer something like where humans came from. I believe that it's very likely that humans came from Africa. As for Eden, that is a mythical place, and there are no scientific-minded people sitting around trying to come up with a theory about Eden. Scientists don't even think about Eden. It's not even in their heads because it's some stupid mythical place. So he wants to know, why do I need to know? Because I want to know, because I'm curious, because I have an intelligence in me that would like to know. What would be the purpose of faith? And he capitalizes the word faith. You know what faith is? It's an excuse to stop thinking. That's a cliche, but it's a true cliche. You don't care to investigate, to find out, to question, to learn. You have no hunger to know what is really true. You'll just accept what a book says on faith. The purpose of faith I don't think of faith as a nice word. I don't think faith is a virtue. I think faith is a weakness. It is what makes people want to nod their heads and not have to think too much about it. If everything in the Bible were proven to be deniably true, he's saying, what would be the purpose of faith? If everything in the Bible were proven to be undeniably, well, wait a minute. Doesn't Christianity claim that everything in the Bible is true? Yeah. So, I guess that, things like stoning your daughters for not being virgins on their wedding night. Don't even get me started. There's a whole lot in the Bible that is not only not true, but has been proven to not be true. Things like, I don't know, bats being birds for one, or rabbits having cuds for another. There's a whole lot of things in the Bible that are not true. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go on faith that all the little warm fuzzy verses that I like in the Bible are true, and all the other verses that I don't like, I don't have to look at, because I'm just going to believe that everything is true because I'm going to go on faith. So I'm sorry, what a weak and flimsy response to my first reason for rejecting Christianity. The fact that there is no such thing as Eden or Adam or Eve or any of that. It's all bullshit. And you know what? Without it, there's no story of original sin, which unravels your entire fucking cult belief system. Okay, so that's my first little bit of this video responding to this person. His second response has to do with the, now I don't have my list up here. I should probably have my list up here. First of all, he says, talk to Bart Ehrman, of all people, about the supposed non-existence of Jesus. Oh, yes. He found himself an agnostic who doesn't say that Jesus doesn't exist because there's no evidence either way. And I can't even tell you how many Christians latch on to Bart Ehrman. Ooh, Bart Ehrman. Ooh, you know what? Who gives a rat's ass? Bart Ehrman is just one person with one person's opinion. Ooh, talk to Bart Ehrman. The supposed non-existence of Jesus? What about the supposed existence of Jesus? Okay, here's what his whole comment says. Comment number 2. No God equals no God equals no objective morality. Talk to Bart Ehrman, of all people, about the supposed non-existence of Jesus. This Jesus myth junk is the real conspiracy theory here, and demonstrates how little most new atheists know about history. I'm sorry, Mr. MDChristian82, but at this point I'm starting to think you're either a whatever. You're a joke. There is nothing about the Bible that is history. History contradicts what's in the Bible. So I'm sorry, but you putting the name Jesus and history in the same paragraph is, in my opinion, hysterical. There is no evidence, none, zip, that this Jesus person ever existed. The earliest Christians had no awareness of a walking, talking, breathing Jesus. Their Jesus was a spiritual Jesus. Their Jesus lived on the spiritual plane. There was no physical Jesus or even awareness. He wasn't even invented until like 80 years after his alleged death. And there's no evidence for any of it. There's no evidence that he ever lived, except what the church made up in their stupid book. There's no evidence for Jesus existing. As far as no God equals no objective morality, really? I'm sorry, but morality can exist without a stupid little guidebook. And I'm sorry, no God? How do you give God the credit for morality? Have you read the Bible? How do you find morality in a God that commands that virgin girls are kept to be spoils of war for the soldiers of Israel, or commands that pregnant women be cut open with swords? How do you call that God moral? Or how do you find morality from such a God that will deliberately create humankind corrupted and flawed and then drown every last one of them because, oops, I guess I did that wrong. Oh, but he knows everything. Anyway, I have no idea what this crap new atheist whatever is. What exactly is a new atheist compared to an old atheist? That would be a good thing to find out, because you know what? Last time I checked, atheist is just a definition of a word to describe a person who is unable or cannot believe in a God. And the reason we cannot believe in a God is because Christians like you fail to provide us a convincing argument to convince us to believe in God. I'm sorry, the failure is yours. Or maybe it's the failure on the part of your gods because he has deliberately hardened our hearts so we cannot believe, because he actually wants people to burn forever in hell, because he gets his jollies on pain and suffering and inflicting it on little mortal beings that he has made flawed. So I'm sorry, your second comment I find absurd and ridiculous. His comment number 3. Again, I don't have my list up, and I should, but I'm feeling kind of lazy this morning. Number 3, irrelevant. Jesus was not merely a man, and since he is God, it was a self-sacrifice. The crucifix is a symbol of what Christ did for us, and a reminder for us to be humble. Jesus was not merely a man. Says who? Says history? Says historians? Says archaeology? Or says a book? Your little book, your little guidebook that you have chosen to believe is the Word of God and inspired by God, but there's no proof at all anywhere that it in fact was inspired by God. Sorry, something popped up on my computer. So that's it. Jesus was not merely a man. We're just going to accept this of faith because the book says so. And since he is God, and we know he's God, why? Oh, that's right, because the book says so. It was a self-sacrifice. You know, if God is so all-powerful, why didn't he just say, you know what? I'm just going to let that whole stupid blood sacrifice stuff go, because it's really primitive and crude. And I'm better than other primitive gods. I don't require a blood sacrifice like all the other really primitive heathen gods. But no, he doesn't. He says, you know what? I love the smell of burning blood, and I want you to burn things on, you to burn things on the altar. And yeah, I'm sorry. It's a primitive, disgusting ritual, and Christianity did not rise above it. They have a God that wants it just as much as all the other heathen gods that came before him. And rather than say, you know what, I'm better than they are, I don't need to have a sacrifice, I'll just forgive you because you know what, it was my fault that I made you flawed. I made you. And everything that you are is because I made you that way. Rather than do that, no, he has to have a blood sacrifice. So he sent himself down to appease himself. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. The crucifix is a symbol of what Christ did to us. Says, oh yeah, that's right, a book. A book says that this mythical character for which there's no evidence whatsoever did this thing for us. And we should be proud that an innocent man we should walk around with the symbol that an innocent man paid the price for something that we deserve to. And here's the question, why did we deserve to die again? Oh, that's right, because of original sin, which there's no evidence for that either, and there's no evidence for Eden or Adam and Eve or any of that. But because because the book says it all happened, we deserve to be burned forever. So rather than us having to pay the punishment, this just God put an innocent man. I'm sorry. It's really hard for me to argue this ridiculous person. Number 4, he says wrong. See answer 2. Again, I don't have my list up. But you know what? It has to do with the whole morality thing, I think. Anyway, there can be goodness without God. And Jesus doesn't. You know what? I need to bring out my list. So hang on, I'm going to come back with my list. He says for number 4, he says wrong, see answer 2. So, My number 4 is, let me scroll down here. Doesn't make sense to me that people can love and be good without this God, but they can. And he's saying wrong. See his answer 2. And his answer 2 is, no God, no object. So you're saying that people can't be good without God. You know what? That doesn't even merit a response for me. Move on. Okay, so his number 5. Even if women were made in the image of man, Genesis 1:27 contradicts this. Ooh, so we're going to cherry pick, are we? Do you know that Genesis used to have a story of Adam's first wife, who was named Lilith, who was made from the dirt, just like man was made from the dirt to be his equal? And the reason that man didn't like Lilith, or Adam was unhappy with Lilith, was because she wanted to be on top, having sex with him. He wanted to dominate her, so he wasn't happy. So God saw that Adam wasn't happy. So then, I don't know exactly what happened, but along the way, Lilith actually made the unforgivable sin of saying God's name, and he turned her into a demon. That whole story has been removed from Genesis. Yet you want to invoke a little verse from Genesis to try to say that you're being right about something. You know what? I don't use the Bible for any reason at all to support any argument, because it's crap and bullshit. And things have been tweaked and taken out, and Christians cherry pick, and they only want to look at what they want to see or believe and ignore everything. Christian, I have to urge you to just try to read your Bible. You know, read Genesis, and then read Genesis 1, and then read Genesis 2. And then ask yourself, why are the descriptions of the creation of women different? In Genesis 1, God creates man and woman from the dirt as equal. They are both created in his image from the dirt at the same time. In Genesis 2, we have God putting Adam to sleep so he can take a rib from Adam's side and create women who is going to be Adam's helpmeet. Now, why are these two descriptions of the creation of women different? Because Genesis 1 describes the creation of Lilith. Originally, God intended women to be equal to men, and he created man and woman in his image. Man didn't like that. So God did a do-over. And Genesis 2 describes the creation of Eve, which was an afterthought because Lilith didn't work out. Man just couldn't handle a woman who was his equal. So Eve was created from man in the image of man. 2 different books, 2 different descriptions, actually describing the creation of 2 different women. But you know what? I think Christianity didn't like having this example out there for women to see of a woman who was equal to man, or the original idea that God had was that women and men should be equal, but wasn't good enough for man. Man wanted to be in charge. So I guess God is man's lackey, and So yeah, I'm sorry, but invoking Genesis 1:27 or whatever, you're talking about the creation of Lilith, not the creation of Eve. And you're right, Lilith was created in God's image, just as man was, just as Adam was. But if you read Genesis 2, no. Maybe you should be a little bit more familiar with your Bible before you start throwing crap out like this. Oh, and I have to add, if you're scratching your head about the Lilith story, maybe you'll need to Google it, because they've done everything in their power. Your religion has done everything in its power to eradicate Lilith from the Bible, to get rid of every mention of her that is in the Bible, because again, oops, it doesn't work with what they want the religion to teach, so let's just get rid of it. Oh, but it's God's inspired word, and it's true, and it's holy, but we can just arbitrarily get rid of whatever doesn't suit our fancy. Yeah, that sounds like the truth to me in a religion that I really want to follow. Okay, so his number 6. I know Christians who are very environmentally friendly and have verses to back them up. You know what? When I was a Christian, I was very environmentally friendly too, because even despite the Bible and the way the religion kind of encourages the belief that this life is just a moment in the morning of our day and the world is temporary because something better is coming, I valued the planet and nature and animals. So yes, I know that there are exceptions to the rule. I'm not talking about individual Christians. I'm talking about the religion in general. I believe that it promotes the attitude that the planet is temporary and this life is not important because something so much better is coming and God's going to remake the earth and there's going to be this wonderful heaven. Where does he go? I'm sorry, I lost it. Speciesism? Animals are clearly inferior to human beings in most respects. One, humans are animals. So when you say animals are clearly inferior to human beings, that's like saying human beings are clearly inferior to human beings because humans are animals. I know it's hard for you to understand this. I know it's a little hard on your ego to admit this, but human beings are animals. And I'm sorry, but just because human beings have an intelligence that allows us to create things and, make our lives a little more warm and cozy because we have the ability to, because we have thumbs to manipulate things around us better. How do you judge intelligence? How do you judge what is superior and what isn't superior? I see other animal species not destroying the planet. In my opinion, that might make them superior to humans. And I'm sorry, but science has yet to tap into the thinking capacity or thinking capability of cetaceans. I think it's dolphins that actually have individual names. They have a sound. They each have a different sound that refers to that individual. That they, in addition to their language that's different, I believe, depending on which pod we're talking about, they have names. And you don't see dolphins polluting the oceans and causing the oceans to die and the coral reefs to die off. You don't see dolphins coming onto the land and stripping the land of its resources. So how do we know that dolphins aren't more intelligent and superior to human beings? Just because they don't make computers and cars, that's not necessarily an indication that they are inferior to humans. And again, you show in this very paragraph, you are demonstrating speciesism. Can't say it. Speciesism. Just by your comment, animals are clearly inferior to human beings in most respects. You don't need religion to see that. Really? How do you know insects are less intelligent than human beings? Really? How do you know? Love? Oh. That doesn't mean I don't love or take good care of my cats. Good for you, dude. Animals, after all, are God's creatures. And we know this because a book says. You blame Christianity for the world's environmental crisis? I blame religion. I blame the Abrahamic religions that treat this existence like it's something temporary and insignificant compared to the glory of heaven and the afterlife. Sorry, yes, I blame religions for promoting this and this mentality. Not Christianity alone, all religions. That's completely baseless and utterly prejudicial. Yeah. How long has these religions been around? Couple thousand years. I think it's not baseless. I think a couple thousand years of the belief that the planet is temporary and we can do with it as we please and animals were just put here for us to use, passed on from generation to generation to generation. I believe that belief is a very harmful one, and I do believe it has negatively impacted the planet. I don't know if it's baseless or not baseless. I think it's very likely to be true. Here he goes in number 7. Sounds like new atheist to me. Can you explain what a new atheist is again compared to an old atheist? Again, the word atheist, the definition, is somebody who doesn't believe in God. Okay, I'm going to end this because this is, I'm trying to do one little segment for each one, and I kind of started going into 7, so okay, I'll be back. Sounds like new atheist to me. Okay, so let me go back to my little thing here. So what is number 7 on my thing? The warped way this religion makes people see the world. Everything is black and white. If you don't believe as we believe, you are a bad and evil person. If you dare to mock our God, you deserve to be tortured forever. Da 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 da. Do you know what forever is? Da 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 da. That's my number 7. His comment sounds like new atheist to me. At least we have values. Oh, and we don't? Moral guidelines. We don't necessarily need moral guidelines. We have our conscience, and we have how our parents taught us and how we were raised, and the simple understanding that it sucks to be hurt, so maybe we don't want to hurt other people. He's like, you come across like you're just so superior because at least we have values. We don't have values. Really? Isn't that a little arrogant of you and presumptuous of you to say that to anybody? At least we have values, moral guidelines, and something to look up to that we think is there, but the only reason we think is there is because the book says so. I have something to look up to, too. I adored my dad, and in my opinion, my dad had the qualities of a very wonderful person, and I have looked up to him my whole life and wanted to be the kind of person that my dad was. Atheists have people they like to look up to. They have people that inspire them, that they look up to. And it's real. It's not some imaginary thing that's in a book that you've decided is true, and the only reason you've decided that is because the book says. So you have something to look up to, and apparently atheists don't have anything to look up to. We don't have any values. We don't have any moral guidelines. Really? Fucking A. I'm sorry, but what an asshole for you to even say that. Rather than arrogance. Excuse me? Are you saying that I'm arrogant after you had the audacity to tell me that we don't have, that you, at least you have values, moral guidelines, and something to look up to, implying that atheists don't? And then you turn around and say that we are arrogant? And then you say, rather than arrogance, hatred, and excuses for sinning. Let's see, do we see atheists at the head of every movement that's anti-gay? Do we see atheists blowing up abortion clinics? You want to talk about hatred? Do we see atheists going on the internet and telling people, ha 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 ha, I can't wait to see you burning forever in hell? You want to talk about hatred? Look at the members of your own religion. And who is spreading hatred in this world? I see anger in atheists because we are immediately excuses for sinning. Things like that cause atheists to be angry. When people say that we have no values or moral guidelines and nothing to look up to, or that we just want excuses to sin, we get angry. There's a difference between anger and hatred. I see a lot of anger in atheists, but hatred, I have to look at Christians for that. And it's not hard to find. Christians and Muslims, just look at the headlines in your average newspaper and see the hatred all over the place in the news caused by Christianity and Muslims, Islam. Have you considered how long forever is? Being tortured forever for rejecting and mocking the infinite creator of the universe. The punishment fits the crime. Thank you for proving my point that I made in number 7. Mocking the creator of the universe that we just decided is we just think is true. We just think he exists because the book says, but ooh, if you mock our book and what our book says, you deserve to be tortured forever, and we think that punishment fits the crime. You have not only demonstrated that my comment in number 7 is 100% accurate, but it demonstrates the hatred that your religion breeds in people just like you. Okay, number 8. Yes, this video is going to be long, but every time I see a new thing he's written, the more absurd he is getting to me. He's commenting about my number 8. My number 8 comment is, to find it now, no proof of heaven, hell, Satan, or that anything really in the Bible is true. No archaeological or historical evidence that I know of. Yep. Okay, so his comment? See answer number 1. His answer number 1. Let's see. Where's answer number 1? Oh, yes. There are theories. Yes, scientifically supported theories as to where Eden was. Again, I have to say there's no theories about religion, about your religion. Theories have to do with the scientific community, and it takes a hell of a lot of work for a hypothesis to become a theory. Your stupid Bible and your stupid creationism and your stupid idea that there's a Garden of Eden is so beneath the realm of ever being a theory, ever getting to have the illustrious title of theory. And you don't even try to reach the goal of getting to be called a theory. It's a fucking thing from a fucking book. And I'm really angry because I know what he wrote next. Also, most Christians are not members of the Westboro Baptist Church, stoning children to death. Have you never read the many passages where Paul emphasizes that we are no longer under the old law, but under grace? Actually, there's a line in the Bible, and again, I don't feel like looking it up because it is just a book, where Jesus says that not one jot or tittle of God's law shall change or be changed until everything has come to pass. As my personal interpretation of what Jesus is saying is, when he comes back again, his second coming, that has not happened yet. So until everything transpires, everything comes to pass, not one jot or tittle of God's law is to pass away. Okay, I do need to look up the verse. Hang on. Matthew 5:18. And this is Jesus talking, not Paul. And last time I checked, Jesus is supposed to be your Messiah and your Savior, not Paul. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. He's talking about the Old Testament. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. There are something like 660 some different commandments in the Old Testament, and some of them do actually involve stoning your daughter if she's not a virgin on her wedding night. So, I'm sorry, but you want to, that the old rule doesn't apply, the old laws. The only thing that's ceased to be applicable after Jesus came is supposing he came, which I don't think he did because I don't think he ever existed. Sacrificing your animals and your daughters and your crops on an altar cease to be necessary because Jesus paid the ultimate sacrifice to make all that other stuff no longer necessary. But that is the only thing that Jesus coming did, because all the other stuff that Jesus talks about has not been fulfilled yet. He has not come back yet. And so I'm sorry, but the laws that Jesus himself followed and studied and researched because he was Jewish do still apply. And we Christians ignore them. They don't even adhere to the 10 commandments, never mind the 600 some other commandments there are. So I'm sorry, but you are full of crap when you talk about your little, we are no longer under the old law. Yes, you are, according to Jesus. Oh, but maybe you worship Paul. Maybe that's who you worship. I suppose if you worship Paul and not Jesus, then maybe you're right. Maybe you need to start, I don't know, changing the name of your Savior to Paul. Number 9. Oh my God, you know, as I go further into this, the more I feel my blood pressure rising. How can an all-knowing, future-seeing God blame humans when he himself made them flawed? This is my boatsmith, my hole-in-the-boat analogy. Omniscient, I never can say that word. This God, the God that Christianity likes to say gave us free will, knows the future. Not only that, but everything that happens is according to God's divine plan. Everything. And he knows the future. So he knows when he makes us where we're going to end up when we die, after we die. He knows at the beginning, before we're even born, even before our parents were born. Everything's all laid out already in this divine plan. So really, is there free will? He knows what we're going to say before we say it, what we think before we think it. And in fact, everything we say, everything we think, everything we do is all a part of his divine plan and his purpose. So what does he write? You don't seem to understand foreknowledge versus predestination. God gave man free will. That isn't creating man as inherently flawed, but giving him a choice to do good or evil. If God gave man free will, then why does he say, if you don't love me, you get to be tortured forever. You get to have 2 choices. If you pick the wrong one, you get to be tortured forever. My voice is going. How is that free will? Really, I'd like to know. How is that free will? God gave us the choice to do good or evil. You know what? Again, you like to make these sweeping statements that have no evidence to back them up. You have not proven that God exists at all. All you have is a book that says that this God exists, and yet God has done this. God has given man free will and the ability to have a choice between good and evil. Because a book says. We're supposed to believe this thing exists because a book says. The fact that we ourselves are able to differentiate between good and evil, that's because God gives us that ability. If there was no God, we wouldn't know the difference. I'm sorry, but the ridiculousness is just piling up. And then he writes, why even bringing this up, seeing as you claim to disbelieve in the God of the Christian Bible? You speak as if you do believe. No, I don't believe. But you know what I do believe? I believe your Bible is a piece of shit that has caused a lot of damage in the world. And your religion has caused a lot of damage in the world. And people like you, who are not only arrogant and assume that people who don't believe as you do have no values or moral guidelines or anything to look up to, and all we do is run around hating people. I think people like you are damaging to the world, and yes, I speak angrily about a religion that creates people like you. And it's because of people like you demonstrating the things that you have written in this comment that I reject your religion, because it creates people like you. And his last comment was to my number 10, which apparently is both irrelevant and complete nonsense. Okay, so what does my number 10 say? The God is racist. This is irrelevant, apparently, to this guy. It's irrelevant. What does he say? Irrelevant and complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense? Really? Have you read the Old Testament? Have you read about when Moses is led to the Promised Land and what God does to all the other civilizations that are already living in the Promised Land? Have you read about how they completely decimate village after village after village of people already there? Who I'm pretty sure have no awareness of God, have never been introduced to God, have not had the benefits of your loving and merciful and just God, and they're wiped out because of it, because they got in the way. I'm sorry, this land, we've decided that this land belongs to the Israelites. It's the promised land that God is giving to the Israelites. And I'm sorry, you guys, you're just in the way. We're just going to wipe you out down to the last animal. Ooh, but that's irrelevant and complete nonsense. And it doesn't, the fact that God has a chosen people and is racist and favors this one people and manages to bless them with his wisdom, but all the other people who are ignorant, they're wicked because they're ignorant, and God didn't bother to give them the time of day, so they're okay to kill. That comment is just irrelevant and complete nonsense, and he doesn't even need to respond. And his number 11, when I say creationism, really, that's the best you can do to explain the beginning of the world. This is what he writes: no argument even posed here. You're right, because your silly idea of how the world is, which is founded on zero evidence whatsoever except a book, and what a book says. You're right. There's no need to argue that. There's no need to even challenge that. The whole thing with Bill Nye going up against the whatever of the creationism museum is insulting to anybody with half a brain. I'm sorry, but why would Bill Nye waste his time talking to the guy who put the creationism museum together? Why is he wasting his time? It's like he's legitimizing stupid, in my opinion. Creationism is stupid. People who look at this book and say there is a God and all these little rules, and we can't be good without this book, and we can't be good without this God, and if you don't believe our little book and what this book says, you don't have any values or morality or anything to look up to, and you're just hateful, and you're just looking for reasons to sin or excuses to sin. You know what? I see a lot of atheists, running around, and I don't see, have you looked up the 2012 statistic for how many atheists are in our current prison system in the United States versus how many Christians are in our prison system in the United States? Have you compared the crime rates in other countries that don't believe in Christianity versus the crime rates in this country? And you want to call atheists people who look for excuses to sin. Again, you need to look at your own religion for that. Anyway, this is as much of a response as I can give this guy. I think he wasted an hour of my morning. And I'm sorry, but people like this not only sicken me, but they are my number 12 reason for rejecting Christianity. I want nothing to do with a belief system that creates people that think like this. So, anyway, if you've managed to wade through all this lengthiness, this long-ass video with me trying to get stuff out without, I haven't even started my coffee yet. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I'm sorry that I had to spotlight the stupidity that this person posted on my channel, but it just proves my point even more, so I kind of felt like I needed to. Now I need to get my blood pressure back down. This is a poison in our world. It's a poison and it's an evil, and the sooner it's eradicated completely from the planet, the sooner that reason manages to infect our young people so the dinosaurs who believe this way die out, the better. Thanks for watching if you have. Bye.